No one else could
No
pick
one else
him.
could pick Guile. Yeah, yeah.
And another thing I need to mention here though is like I definitely did not play at where like the top players of Street Fighter 2 played. Not at all. Like I
Okay.
wasn't I didn't actually play in that era. I'm sure you guys asked me questions down the road about this, but like I didn't play at the like Tomo Mike Watson infancy of like tournament like
Ah,
rivalry. Like when those guys were
okay.
like the me and Choi's down the road, right? It's like those guys were like the
Right.
fathers of this stuff in the U.S. And
Yeah.
you know that was just how it was. And I had to figure that out down the road. Like I had to travel to various arcades as I got older, but you know that was already an alpha era by the time I was able to like travel around and you know go to a buddy's car. I'm no longer on a bike. So yeah, everything happened so fast, man.
Yeah.
Everything happened so fast, and it was just a few years to like get from you ever figure it like it's 1996 is when Alpha 2 came out.
Yep.
1991, 92 is when Street Fighter 2 came out. That's not that long if you think about like the
Yeah.
modern age of
Yeah.
games, but it
Yeah.
felt like an eternity back then. But that's
Oh,
how
yeah.
how many years I missed of top level Street Fighter 2. Like I didn't play versus any
Ah.
of those guys until the Alpha series. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So were you
Okay.
kind of in like your own did you have your own bubble, separate bubble of players that you were kind of practicing with, but you just ended up beating them all the time and you didn't really get good practice? Or was it kind of like, did you actually train up pretty well in your own scene with people that maybe we don't know about?
No, there were some players from my region that did play. So it's a beautiful like uh story and a culmination of like how we all met and like in Orange County the region that I'm from, the two top players in that region were Tao Duong and Jeff Schaefer. Jeff Schaefer is definitely number one from my region versus like Los Angeles County. I mean, right? Los Angeles County had the Tomo and Watson, right? And a bunch of
Watson,
great
and, yeah.
players up there. And they used to play in an arcade called World's Finest. Well, it's a comic book shop called World's Finest. And it's another thing. I never attended to any of those. I just heard like many
Oh.
stories. But that was, like the Mikado, you know, the game Newton.
Yeah.
That was like the Southern Hills. Dude, that was like the mecca of, SoCal Street
Yeah.
Fighter 2 legacy. Right. So, but
Yeah.
anyways, through Tao Duong and Jeff Schaefer, I met Mike Watson eventually. So it took that many years
Okay.
for the communication, and when I got older, for Mike to even like finally take a challenge. So, yeah. So
Yeah, I guess would you say Mike Watson would be your first like rival, or like how did the rivalry start, and in what games are we talking about? Of course, there's many versions of Street Fighter 2. I remember like if you look at Tomo Ohira, he was like the god at hyper fighting, like
Hyper-fighting.
Super or just Street Fighter 2 Turbo before they added Super,
Super,
right?
yeah.
But then like during that time there were different versions of the game, and I guess in a sense like back then it wasn't like DLCs, seasons or anything like that. It was like the versions of the games that would come out, and that's the version that everyone played. But usually I imagine everyone played kind of the latest version that had come out. So do you have any was there any game that was particular for the early rivalries of the game? Is there like this is the game that you prove yourself in, or was it kind of like a bunch of various games and was it like that, or
okay,
how did that competition come about?
all right. So I would say I developed my skills to be like, not like looking back, to be a competitive tournament player since like champion edition, but I didn't
Yeah.
know where the tournaments were. Like I was
Okay.
decent, right? I wasn't good and I wasn't, great. I was beating my, several pockets of my region, but and all of this is word of mouth. You have to like bounce around. You have to call. Like I don't know if you guys are familiar with like okay, so we have the arcades back in the days trying to figure out who's who. The pool hall
Yep.
scene was the same. They had those sharks.
Mm.
They would
Oh,
call
I
up
see.
and
Yeah.
they would set up matches, right? They would call like who's
Yeah.
over there. It was the same ordeal, but I mean, I wasn't at that level yet. But Once we
Sure.
got older and we had to figure these things out on our own, we like, hey, is that one guy that plays Ken? Is he over there right now? To make it worth our while to drive or to ride our bikes there, right?
That's
Because
right.
we would hate
Yeah.
to go all this way, waste our entire day, and the person that frequents there that's good is not there, right? So
Yes,
like it was like that. So to me, like I didn't find good enough opponents. I mean, to the level of like Mike and them for a long time. Like I would play good
Right.
players,
Yeah.
and we would have these all right, back and forth, Ryu mirror matches, Ken Ryu and whatever, right? And we're just putting in so many quarters, and we don't know if we're getting any better, but we were just on the grind, right? And
Yeah.
then I mean, it paid off. We were beating people left and right. We would, a group of us would go to different arcades and convenience stores, comic book places, and it was okay. But then it kind of fizzled out because we didn't really prove ourselves in tournaments. We didn't know where they were. We didn't even know that scene yet. The only random
Yeah.
tournaments I've entered were like a Pizza Hut. No, not Pizza Hut. It was like a Shakey's, and then like a video store. I just happened to walk in and there was a tournament there. So it took me like, even though this is how many years I've been going to the arcade, until 1995, and this was like around Street Fighter Alpha 1. This is where I met
Yeah.
Mike Watson. Okay, Street Fighter
I
Alpha 1,
see.
right? And
Okay.
he's already like dominated SoCal, so and
Okay.
like
Yeah.
and it just took that story is like kind of where like a different type of rivalry. Like it's more like mentor and protege, right? So like,
okay.
it's one of those things. I don't think I was Mike's rival at all at that
Right.
point. Yeah, because he was still
Yeah.
like he beat me up on like Alpha, and I thought I was hot shit in Alpha 1. And he just beat my ass on that game, and I got frustrated, and I'm like, you want to play any of the old games? Because I'm like, yeah, I had that in the back burner. And he looks at me, he's all like, all right, man, let's do it. And he just beats me up in the older games even worse, and I'm like,
Same result. Yeah.
Damn.
But
I'm
worse. Yeah.
all,
See,
like,
even
depressed,
the great Alex Valle goes through that phase where I thought I was the best, but there are like much greater people in the bigger universe.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
But
so-
yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess so there must have been a point where so you're getting better if you're playing someone like Mike Watson. I'm sure